just an introduction. There you go. This meeting is being recorded. So let's start with some introductions in case you don't know who we are. We're not all speaking tonight, but I think we're all here. So I'll probably just read through the names because we've all said hello before. But if you are any of the people in these pictures, maybe give a wave when I get to your name. People might be able to see you. So first up, we've got Ben, who is our contingent leader. Then you've got me, my name's Beth, and I'm one of the deputy contingent leaders, along with Nicola, who is the other deputy. Then we've got Matt Foster, who is IST, and he does some data stuff as well. Then we've got Stu down on the bottom row, and the other Stu, we've got Stu and Stuart, just to keep things interesting. Then we've got our other Matt Lightfoot, he does media, and then we've got Wiley, James Wiley as well. And we are your contingent management team, your CP. So next up, what are we doing tonight? So it's Moot Monday number 2, it's finances and fundraising. So we're going to be looking at Moot costs. So just a rundown, you should already know this information, it's already on the website, but just to run through it again, what you need to pay and when you need to pay it. Nicola's going to run through that. Brief mention about the inclusion fund for those who have already got involved with that. Then we're going to have Matt talking about saving for the Moot. So talking about bank accounts, savings accounts, how to keep yourself right, because it's a long way to go and it's a lot of money to save up as well. Then I'm going to come back on and talk to you about fundraising. I'm going to share some ideas that you guys have sent in and talk a little bit about things you need to think about. And then Wiley is going to be hosting the social of this evening. So during the session, like I said, if you can stay on mute for this presentation part, but if you do have any questions, stick them in the chat box at the bottom and we'll try and answer all the big questions that we can. So if you're all ready, we will get going. So I'll pass over to Nicola to get with the Moot costs.
Hi there. So I'm going to give, well, probably not too brief, a rundown of our Moot costs. There's going to be different elements to the costings that we've given to people. So the core cost we have is our base fee, and that's what we refer to mainly. And for participants in total, that comes to £995. And you can see there on our table that we've split it into 3 payments. The first initial deposit, which hopefully most of you have paid by now. We have a second payment in June, and then a third payment in next February, a year in February. IST are slightly different. There's a slightly lower fee, and so that is split up again over those three payment dates. Those of you that have been awarded a grant, back in October, you would have received an email either on the 22nd if you're IST, on the 23rd if you were a participant, and that very specifically lays out those payment amounts that you need to pay on those specific dates. So you get a slightly different schedule. And that's laid out in there for you. We also have some of our add-on packages. I'm going to go through them and then I'm going to come back to this table a bit later to explain how that works a little bit more. 2 other things to mention. Eventry, our system that we're using for the registration. We are the guinea pigs. We're the first team to use it, and we're still learning. And it's given us a bit of gremlins. So some of you have probably had trouble. We have emailed about this, about being able to make, what happens is when you come to make your final payment, you get a timeout error. And this is very specific. It only happens if you're using Google Chrome or if you're using the new Microsoft Edge. So on our website and in our previous communications, we have said, please don't use those. Use either Firefox or Safari, or if you can still find it on your PC. You do still have Internet Explorer, you just have to manually search for it. So if you use one of those instead, you shouldn't have this payment issue. Some of you also may have logged in over the weekend and tried to pay and gone, that looks a little bit more expensive than I thought. We had a little problem with the dates. on our payments over the weekend. So it was asking you to pay our June payment as well as our January payment by accident. We have fixed that now. So if you go back on from today, that is fixed. And those that got caught up in between, I have emailed everyone this afternoon to explain what happened and what we can do about that in the meantime. So if you check your emails, I have emailed everyone this afternoon that got affected by that. So moving on, I can't remember. I only wrote these slides last night and I can't even remember what's on the next one, Stu. Base fee, yay. So our core base fee is what everyone pays. And it's broken down. We have mainly the bulk of the fee is the fee charged by the Moot organisers. We have no control over that. It's what they charge for running the event, feeding you, moving you around, providing all the facilities on all the sites. Another element of our base fee is the contingent support and development. So that is the work that we do and all the time and the resources and effort that we need to put in as a CMT and to support all our comms and all the objectives that we want to achieve as a contingent. This includes our event cancellation insurance and I guess it doesn't necessarily include travel insurance, and I'm going to come back to that again when I discuss the add-on packages. So it includes travel insurance in terms of when you're on the event, you are covered as a scout, you are insured. And if you travel with us as part of the contingent, you will have travel insurance included, but it's a little bit more complicated. The contingent briefing event, we will be hopefully, fingers crossed, thinking things are looking optimistic now with the vaccines on the way. That we are still hoping to have our contingent-wide briefing event in May 2022. So the cost of that, the food, accommodation, everything, all the entertainment and everything that we'll run on that weekend will all be included in that. We do have some admin costs, the cost of running the registration system, and believe it or not, we do need a little bit of support from our staff members in HQ, and we do have to cover the cost of that support, so that's included in there. And we also have our kit, as we previously said. We'll be providing a couple of badges, a couple of neckers and a t-shirt, and that's for you to use or to swap or trade, do whatever they like with it. So that's all included. But there are specifically things that aren't included. There's travel costs, so getting to Ireland, getting to the arrival and departure points that the organisers will specify. That is down to you. The cost of the participant, the pre or post events for participants, they are not included. Any additional kit items you may wish to purchase, we are working with Scout Shops to provide a few other items. You know, some of you may want a hoodie or want to buy additional neckers for trading, etc., etc. So we're working with that sort of thing. You will also need some personal equipment to take part. So you'll need a bag to carry everything to the to the moot. You'll need to bring a tent with you. You'll probably need things like a mess kit, obviously a sleeping bag. So you'll need to bring everything you need to camp with you. So if you haven't got those things, you'll either have to look at, saving up and purchasing them, or as Beth's quite keen to encourage people to borrow or to share as much as we can to help meet some of our sustainability goals. And of course, there's also personal spending money. So if you want to buy additional drinks or food items that aren't provided, or go on additional sightseeing or buy souvenirs or other merchandise at the event, that will be down to you. Go ahead, Stu. So just to show you how the fee costs are broken down in those different areas, you can see like the core fee that the Moot organisers charge us is over 80% of the fee, and these pie charts are on our website. We have a very brilliant website that Stu has written, and there is a huge amount of information on there. It is really worth going and having a look. All these tables and things and pie charts are on there, so if you want to go and peruse them at your leisure, they are there to be looked at. So it's just to give you an idea of where all the different parts of the fee are going. So I'm going to just cover a little bit more about our add-on packages. So these are extra, they're not included in the base fee, so they are something you would have to pay extra on top. So we have our travel package. It's up to you whether you choose to take the travel package. If you do, we will pick you up or arrange to meet you at a regional departure point in the UK, and we will take you to the Moot, and we will bring you right back to that departure point. I know we get a lot of people going, oh, that's really expensive to get all the way there. But you do have to bear in mind that those really cheap Ryanair flights that you see advertised are not so cheap once you start adding in your baggage allowance and factoring in that by the time you get to buy your flight for the dates that you want to go, travel agents have already snaffled all the cheap ones. And so you may not find those cheap flights to be as cheap as you think they're going to be. It also includes the additional travel insurance. If you are doing your own travel, you are not covered whilst you are traveling. You're only covered when you join the contingent. So if you are traveling on your own, you will need to arrange your own travel insurance. And of course, you do get the services of our travel agents, travel places, if there's any problems. So if your flight gets cancelled or if the bus breaks down or whatever, we're going to help you with their help resolve that and get you to where you need to be. If you're not on our travel package, you're on your own, guys. I mean, we'll tell you where you need to get to, but you know, it's going to be down to you to figure out how you get there. So, you know, the travel package is kind of a security blanket for a lot of people who perhaps aren't confident travelers. And so we really would recommend it if you're not a confident or you haven't done independent travel before. It's certainly something to really consider. We have 2 other events for our participants. Sadly, IST can't take part in the pre-event and post-event because you are required on the sites to start working as such. But our pre-event is going to be held in Belfast. It'll be 2 nights accommodation. We are lining up a whole series of activities and excursions that you'll be able to pick from. We've got some, Wiley, I know, is very excited about the evening activities for us to take part, and we'll cover we'll cover most meals. I don't think we're probably going to cover lunch because it's just too awkward because everyone will be everywhere. It would be a bit weird, but we will cover breakfast and the evening meals. The evening entertainment will cover our meals there. And similarly for after the event, we've got the evening in Dublin, again with some activities arranged on the afternoon. And again, a huge, Wiley's gone mad with this one as well. Some of the ideas Wiley comes up with are amazing for our evening celebration. And again, that will include a meal and the breakfast on top of that. Additionally, travel places are working on some additional tours that can be added on afterwards. So these will be sort of extra mini breaks starting on the Saturday, and we're still very early. We're still so far out at this point in time that they're still confirming all the details up for these. These will be an additional charge, and probably the charge will vary depending on what the tour is, because there'll be different costs arranged around that. But those will be available for either participants or IST to take part in. So yeah, just going back to our fee table. Don't have to go back, you just go on, Stu. So we have our base fee, as I explained, but in June, if you are taking up any of those additional packages, you will need to make the decision and confirm with us that you are going to take those packages by June and pay the deposit for them. And at that point, you are locked in to that cost. So if you take the travel package, you'll need to pay an additional £50 in June. If you take all 3 of the post event and travel packages, you'll be needing to pay like another £150 deposit, just to be clear. And then the balance of those packages will be due in November. So that's like, if you're taking any of the add-on packages, you have that additional payment date in November. So yeah, and obviously we do have our payment deadline, registration deadline coming up now on the 24th of January. We do want people to do their best to try and register. If you are having trouble, we do ask, to let us know, just to email into us, so we can try and help as much as we can. We have had a lot of inquiries about the Inclusion Fund. As we ran the Inclusion Fund upfront with the application process, sadly we have already allocated all the money that we had for the Inclusion Fund. And like I said, those that were successful got emails either on the 22nd or the 23rd of October. So you can go back and double check those emails, and that explained everything a little bit more in there. The grant amount that you've been awarded has already been deducted from those payments. So when you log on to Eventry, we know by your email address who you are and what category you're in. And so the payment that you're asked to pay is correct. It is the amount that is due. It has taken the grant. We've applied it proportionally over the 3 payments. So, but as we said, if you do have any other problems, if people do have any issues or financial concerns, do email us, do let us know, and we'll do our best to see how we can help. So don't panic is what is our thing. I think that's all my area covered. I'm gonna get my cup of tea.
Cool, that's me up next. Thanks, Nicola. Just a reminder for those of you who have just joined us, we are recording the meeting this evening. So I'm going to talk a little bit about saving for the moot. And before we move on to the next slide, just sort of to give you some insight, this is going to be some tips and tricks based on the experience of the contingent management team and some of the more experienced people when it comes to internationals. We're not financial advisors, but hopefully there will be some useful bits in here for you. But the thing that I really want to emphasize before we get started is that obviously with finances, everybody's financial position is individual. We have a really diverse contingent. Lots of people are at different stages of life. And what that means is that not all advice and tips and tricks will work for everybody, and we completely understand that. So I will share some techniques, and some of them you might think they're really obvious. They might be things you do already as part of your day-to-day life, and they might just be something that's not feasible for yourself in your current circumstances. But hopefully there will be some tips that overall are useful for people. And the thing I'll re-emphasize is what Nicola was saying there, is if you get to a point in your moot journey where you really feel like the moot is becoming unaffordable and you can't save for it, you can't fundraise, please get in touch with us at the Moot inbox and we will work with you. The important thing is that if you get to that point where you're really struggling for the money, let us know so that we can get that on our radar as well. But on with the show, and if we go to the next slide. So the first big tip really in terms of getting yourself saving for the moot is around getting yourself in that right mindset. The thing you've got on your side at the moment is that you've got a lot of time. It's probably the biggest silver lining of the moot being delayed was the fact that we now have a lot more time to plan, prepare, and in this case get our finances sorted before we go. So we have full 18 months before we go into the moot, which gives us quite a lot of time to get ourselves in order. So the first sort of question that I think is useful for you to ask yourself is, how much money do you actually need? So Nicola has very usefully gone through all of the fees table, etc. But it's worth also thinking about things like, are there bits of kit that you need to source in advance? You know, is your waterproof up for a couple of weeks in Ireland, or is it likely that you're going to need to buy a new waterproof jacket in advance? And have a think about what the total cost of your trip's going to be. Think about how much you're going to want to be able to spend when you're there. You can certainly do World Scout events on a shoestring. I've done them myself, where I've not really spent much money outside of the core, outside of the actual event fee. But similarly, if you want to be able to spend a bit more money on your days in Dublin, for example, then make sure you thought about that and how much you're likely to want to spend. On the flip side of that is have a think about what's actually feasible considering your personal circumstance. So, for example, there's no point setting yourself a savings target of putting away £200 per month if that's not feasible, because you'll end up beating yourself up about not putting away enough money, and helpful. So do have a think about what you can realistically do in order to get yourself towards the savings target. The other thing with the savings side of things is that it will require some level of compromise to save. Unless you're getting a pay rise, if you want to save more money than you currently save, you're going to need to spend slightly less money than you do at the moment. So it's worth having a reflection on, are there any areas of your lifestyle that you'd be willing to compromise or willing to change in the run up to the World Scout Moot to help you get to your target. I'd also encourage you to be to chip away at your total rather than being of the mindset that you're just going to find it all overnight. It's going to be about finding little bits of money from different sources. We'll talk about fundraising in a minute. It'll be about saving the little bits here and there, and that's how you'll get to your total. Don't let yourself get fooled into thinking you're suddenly going to find a pot of gold, as it were. It's better to think about it in those sort of chipping away slowly but surely at your target. And the biggest takeaway from this slide is certainly make a plan and get started. It's January 2020. We're going in summer 2022. You do have time, but if you can make your plan and get started now, it will be a whole lot easier than it will be in 6 months or 12 months' time. So if we go on to the next slide. So I wanted to share a couple of bits about saving. We're going to come on to actual fundraising and sort of generating money in a bit. But in terms of saving, there's a couple of kind of key approaches. And the first one is, for my personality, is certainly the best one in terms of passive saving. It's when passive saving is essentially how can you almost trick yourself into saving without noticing it. The classic one that many of you, I'm sure, will do already, that's worth thinking about, is can you set up a standing order payday on the day student loan comes in, whatever it is, and just immediately put that money into a savings account so that slowly accumulates over the next 18 months. The other tip is a slightly newer one, as banks have developed a lot over the last couple of years, is something called rounding up your spending that some of you will be familiar with. A lot of the challenger banks that are emerging at the moment, to the likes of Monzo and Revolut, are two of the biggest ones. And also some of the traditional banks, like Nationwide, I know do it, are now offering features through the apps on their accounts that allow you to round up every single card transaction to the nearest pound, and it puts that money away into a pot for you. I've been doing that for a couple of years now, and I find it so useful. It's not world-changing amounts of money that you're going to get from roundups, but it is a genuinely useful thing. I personally use it to pay for my Glastonbury Festival every year, and if you're somebody that spends a lot on card, it genuinely does add up over the year. So I'd recommend having a look at some of those challenger banks, or looking at even if your own bank offers that kind of function. Then with active saving, here it is essentially directly choosing to put money aside for the moot, which is also something that you should certainly consider doing. One thing, again, with some of the modern bank accounts, is budgeting tools that are available through them. So you can have bank accounts now that you can set up how much you want your budget for your bills to be, how much for groceries, how much for shopping, how much for entertainment, and it will automatically track how much you're spending, all of that through your banking app for you. And that means that you can keep a nice tight budget. You can understand in the month how you're doing. And I found it a very, very useful bit of technology that's helped me keep more of an understanding of where I'm at with my finances on a day-to-day basis. Another technique that I've come across before is the personal tax technique. This is where if you're somebody that is a sucker for sales or sucker for buying some of the non-essential items, you can decide to charge yourself a tax on every non-essential item you buy. So if it's a new pair of shoes, you're going to put away an additional proportion of that into your Moot savings account in order to help you justify the money you're spending on a non-essential item. Now, the thing that's useful for is one, obviously, if you do buy those non-essential items, you're then forcing yourself to put some money away as well for the Moot, which is a good place to be. But it helps you actually rationalize, I need to buy this item, and it might help you save money by thinking, actually, I don't need to spend that money right now, so I'm not going to. And then the final thing on active saving is becoming a bargain hunter. If you're someone that loves brands, are you willing to chip away at your Moot total by changing some of the items that you buy in the supermarket? Can you go and start hunting in sales rather than buying items at full price? And the important thing with hunting for bargains is when you notice that you've saved some money, chuck the money you've saved into your Moot savings account, so that you can then reap the benefit rather than spending it on something else. Then the final slide from me. So I'll leave you with a few things to consider before we move on to fundraising. One thing is that unfortunately at the moment interest rates are really, really low. So you're not going to make life-changing money that's going to suddenly allow you to have loads more money for Moot on interest. However, like I've just gone through, there are lots of other features that banks are offering these days that can help you save. So actually it's worth having a look through your bank. Does it offer things like the roundup function? Does your bank offer budgeting tools? And if it doesn't, could you maybe switch your bank to one that's more useful? Another thing to look out for that I've used a lot over the years is that often banks will offer incentives for you to switch your current account. There's always terms and conditions, and you always have to read them, and there's criteria, etc. And I did check this morning, and there's none currently live, but I imagine there will be over the next 18 months. Is quite often banks will offer a cash incentive for you to switch your current account. And if you did that, you could then take that cash incentive and stick it straight in your Moot savings account. Another tip that I would give is around household bills. If you pay the household bills, then obviously there is a benefit in making sure you've got the cheapest price. But even if you don't pay household bills, but perhaps you live in a household of people that are willing to help you out, is you can often get quite significant cash back from switching your household bills. I get mine through easy fundraising, but I know things like Quid also allow you to do so. And I have a personal easy fundraising account set up for me that's towards my international experiences. I just have my family and myself on it, but things like switching bills are often a very lucrative thing for raising a few more pennies towards your Moot experience. And the final thing I'll say on savings is just, if you don't know of Money Saving Expert already, I know he's very famous, Martin Lewis, these days, and I imagine most of you will have heard of him. But Martin Lewis's website, moneysavingexpert.com, is fantastic for all things finances. If you want to go and do your research on savings accounts, current accounts, etc., I'd absolutely say his website is the place to go. And that's it from me, and I'll pass on.
Cool. Thanks very much, Matt. That was really helpful. So now we're looking at fundraising. So Matt was looking at savings, getting accounts, getting your money saved, but now we're looking at active ways that you can maybe make more money than you would be doing normally. So the next slide, these are some things to bear in mind. So similar to your finances, if you're going to do some fundraising, you need to think about a few different things. first off, you need to know how much money you need to raise. So have a look, like Matt was saying, at how much you think this is going to cost you. So not just the base fee, but are you paying for travel? Are you doing it yourself? Do you want to spend loads of money in Dublin and buy 100 souvenirs to send home? How much money is it going to cost for you and for you personally? And I think that is something that you need to work out for yourself, because everyone's experience is going to be different. Also depends, I guess, how much money you need to raise is how much money do you already have. So if you know that based on your part-time job or on your full-time job, actually I'll probably have this much saved up anyway, how much extra will I need to hit my total cost that I need? The second thing to think about is how much time do you have to dedicate to fundraising? So it is a fabulous idea to sell, hand woven friendship bracelets, but if it takes you an hour to make each one and you've only got an hour a week to do fundraising, is that the best way for you to use your time to get the most money from it? So think about how much time do you have to spare once you take into account your job or your studies or whatever it might be that you're going to be doing on a day-to-day basis. Also think about who you can ask for help. So obviously this is an experience for you, but think about what it can offer to other people. I know at previous events, they've done things like Jamboree Box. So people have said, well, if you help me to fundraise as my group, as my scout group, as my unit, then I'll come and run an international night for you. So can your scouting family help you out? Can your friends and your family, are they willing to help you out in any way? Will they come with you to a car boot sale? Do they have stuff that you can sell? Speak to them and see what people are willing to offer. And also the biggest one I would say is other local mooters. Who else is going to the moot in your area? And hopefully we'll all get to know each other over the course of the next couple of years. But if there's 2 or 3 of you in the same region or in the same district or whatever that are all fundraising together, is that an easy way to do it together? Collectively, could you make more money as a team and then split it between you? These are all things to bear in mind. Obviously, this year and currently, you also need to think about how to make it COVID safe. And I know a lot of people are worried because there's a lot of things that we would normally do to fundraise that we can't do in current circumstances. So that's something to bear in mind. How could you alter the things that you're doing so that it is still COVID safe? And the last thing to bear in mind is the Scout Shop and the Scout Association rules regulations. I'm talking specifically here mostly about badges. So some people like to make their own badges, but if you're going to do that, you need to send a version of it to us so that we can approve it. Because we need to make sure that it fits within the guidelines. There's all these little rules about, the logo needs to be able to be visible and all these different things that I will not bore you with and I don't know much about. But if you are planning on making a badge or a t-shirt or anything like that, then you need to send us those designs so that we can confirm that they're good to go. So if we can click the next slide, please. So here are some ideas. These are obviously not the only things you can do. These are just a random selection, a few that I got from you guys on our Facebook group. So if you are registered and in our Facebook group, you may have seen that I posted. Also things that I've done in the past, things that I know my friends have done in the past. And we're going to have lots more ideas on our website, scouts.org.uk/moot fundraising. So I will read them out in case you can't see them. So the first one there is write to local clubs like your Rotary Club, the Masons. There are lots of local charities in particular that are more than willing to support young people from their area to go away and go and have these experiences. I'm going to come back to that one, so bear that one in mind. Car boot sales. Obviously at the moment, I don't know if they're running, but it's the sort of thing, secondhand markets, that kind of thing. Do you have loads of stuff you could get rid of and make some cash back in that way? Hosting an online event and sell tickets for it. So you could do a quiz night, you could do, those horse racing nights. Could you make that online? Think about the things that you would have done in person. And is there a way to flip that and make it an online experience rather than an in-person one? Try a savings challenge. That's a bit like the sort of thing that Matt was talking about. There's loads of different things online. There's things where I've seen this 52-week challenge. So you write down the numbers 1 to 52, and every week you put in one of those numbers. So you could do the first week you put in £1, the second week you put £2 in, and by the end of the year you've saved up all this money. There's all sorts of daft things like that. You could save £1 a day for as many days as you can afford to, save the change from your lunch or whatever. Think about ways to make it fun, because then maybe you'll be more willing to get involved and to keep it up. Other things we've got there: sell clothes on Depop or Facebook Marketplace, anywhere like that. Again, what have you got in store that you can that you don't need, that you could get rid of? Obviously look at your own stuff first, but see if people are willing to part with some of that old clothes for you to sell as well. But make sure you ask them. Don't go stealing siblings' old clothes and then having arguments about why you've sold it on Depop and not giving them a cut. You could also make and sell badges. Like I said, make sure you send us a version of the design that you're hoping to print so that we can check it's all right. This one I think is a really good one. Use skills you already have. So are you already really good at gardening? Are you good at sewing? Are you a dog walker? Are you a babysitter? What things do you already know about that you could monetize? So if you're really good at mowing the lawn, would your neighbor give you a tenner to mow their lawn? And what about the neighbor beside them? Could you find ways to make bits of cash like that? Think about the skills that you already have and how you can use them to your own benefit. Similarly, I guess, if you're a very crafty person, could you make and sell some kind of nice craft? Friendship bracelets are a really popular one. What else could you make? Could you make cakes and sell them? We can't really do bake sales at the moment, but could you do some sort of delivery cake service? Could you put it on Facebook and say, oh, if you give me a £5, I'll send you a box of cupcakes, and you deliver it to their door? And then the last one on there is sponsored event. You could do a sponsored walk or a cycle or an Irish jig or whatever it is that it might be. How can you make it entertaining, and how can you engage people? How can you link it to the Moot experience? Somebody today on Facebook suggested walking as a group, the collective distance that it would take to walk all the way around Ireland, which is like 6,000 miles or kilometers or something. There's hundreds of different ways. I hope those have inspired you to think of some different things, and hopefully you'll come up with some ways to raise the money that you need. Like Matt said, remember, there's ages to go. We've got a year and a half before we're actually in Ireland. So think about it now and get planning. And I think, like Matt said, it is about building bits little by little. So I don't think if you sold cakes, you're going to make your millions in one go. But if you made cakes this month and then next month did something else, you might get there quicker than you think. The fundraising conversation that's already on Facebook in our Facebook group is still there. So if you guys want to start a conversation in there and keep going and have those conversations and bounce off each other, because I am not the font of all knowledge. I'm sure people have much better ideas than I do. But the last thing I want to mention on the next slide is about this writing to local clubs. So a lot of people fundraise by writing to these local charities or local associations like the Rotary Club, like that. And it's a way of asking these people for a grant or a donation of money to support you. Things to bear in mind when you're writing a letter like this is that you want to sell yourself and sell the idea to them and convince them that it's a good idea. So we've got an example fundraising letter that Ben very kindly put together that's going to be on the website, so you can check out fully written what we want, and you're welcome to just copy and paste that. But things you'll need to include: your name and your group. So who are you and where do you come from? Some information about the Moot. You want them to help you get to the Moot, but remember that unless they're in scouting, and even then, they might not actually know what it is or what you're on about. So what is it? When is it? Where is it? And how much is it going to cost? That's the big one. You're asking for money from them. They need to know why you're asking for that money. Then you want to put something about why the experience will benefit you and what will benefit your local group or your community. So if you're writing to a local community fund that supports people in your area, why will them giving you 100 quid towards your Moot experience be of benefit to them? So will you offer to run an Irish themed event for them? what will you bring back from the moot that is of service to your community? In what ways will it benefit not only you, but them as well? And there's a couple of example sentences there. So I'll gain confidence and independence, but I'll also share my experiences with our scout group to inspire other members to engage with international scouting. So not only do I benefit, but you will benefit as well. And lastly, make it look professional. You're selling yourself, you want to look the real deal. So make sure it's laid out with a proper letter. Put your address at the top. Put, dear sir or madam, if you don't know their name, or to whom it may concern. Check your spelling and your punctuation and use as formal language as you can. Make it look really professional. Think about it as if you're on The Apprentice and you're trying to, get a good deal. How can you do it? And what's the best way to do that? But I think that is all I have to say about fundraising. So I think there's some calls to action there, but we're going to do a quick Q&A just now with some of the things that people have been asking in the chat. So Matt L is going to host this part, I think.
Fabulous. So I've roughly organized them into categories. What I'll do is I'll read out the question. I might not copy the language that you use directly in the chat, but I'll get the gist of it. So the first question that I will throw to Nicola will be, if you travel separately, do you need your own travel insurance?
Yes. So if you're not using the contingent travel package, you will need your own separate travel insurance for that element. It may be possible. I know someone I did go back through the chat myself. Someone mentioned sometimes Unity can add on that to the package. I know for the Jamboree they were able to do that. So we'll look into that closer to the time. But yeah, you will need your own travel insurance. Do you want me to run through all the travel questions, Matt?
Yeah, so sorry, just covering the final bit I was reading. Did you cover off the being able to extend it through travel places and the contingent insurance?
It'll be through Unity. It'll be not travel places directly. One of the key things Ben also asked me to mention, but I missed it during the presentation, was the travel package can only provide travel from the UK mainland. So those of you, sadly, who are not on the mainland or are part of BSO, you cannot take that travel package because obviously we can't predict what the additional cost from traveling from further afield would be. Someone else asked about can you use the travel packages if you're on the pre and post event? Of course. There will be separate departures for the pre and post event as well as for just the people going just to the moot. And equally, if you are on the pre and post event, we will get you to or from those events to the moot. So the pre-event's in Belfast. So once that event's over on the Monday morning, we'll all be traveling down to the moot together. So that travel is included in those pre and post event packages. And someone asked about modes of transport. We don't know at this point. We're still working on them with travel places. What I will say is that you will travel to the moot by the most sustainable method possible. And that is one of our biggest goals and objectives for this moot as a contingent. So if you take the travel package, it could be you fly, it could be you get a coach and ferry, it could be a train and ferry. It could be different for people coming from different parts of the country where it may not make sense. If you live further away to come on a coach, it may make sense to fly. So it's going to be by the most sustainable method possible. I think that covered all the travel areas. The questions.
I'm hoping we'll have a lot more information on that soon. Wiley and I are going to start pretty intense conversations with travel places now we're through the new year and we've got a better idea of how many people want to come. So obviously, whilst you don't have to pay a deposit until June, you've all said when you signed up whether you're vaguely interested in travel or not. And so that gives us a good estimate of, finger in the air estimate of how many people will be responsible for transporting and will help us start to.
Just as an extension to that, either for Nicola or Wiley, we'll be able to find out the travel details before we lock in our decision for travel.
Yep. Yeah. We will definitely let you all know. So as Ben just said there, we will be sat down intensely with a massive map remotely, of course, planning and strategically moving people across the map to get you all to Ireland. So to answer the question, yes, we will let you know in advance.
Yeah, just on that, we might not be able to tell you 100% how it's going to be. We can't say you'll get the ferry at 10 o'clock and you'll be picked up from your house at 7 a.m. But we'll be able to give you the rough gist of air, sea, rail.
And a good estimating cost. Yeah.
So the next ones are based on kit. So will there be a kit list? I guess I can answer this, which was, we will probably put a guideline of things that you should consider taking. And then obviously you can take above or below that, depending on, your past experiences.
And we'll probably do a Moot Monday on it.
We have got Moot Monday scheduled for September on kit. So
so that'll be the sort of time frame we'll be looking at, as well as the extension question. One for Ben would be, would having Irish citizenship help bring down any of the admin costs?
So it might bring down personal administrative costs. So if you were looking to get your own travel insurance, obviously as part of that, it asks what citizenship you are and all that sort of stuff. So in terms of your own personal costs, potentially, it wouldn't really change the base fee. As a contingent, we hold each other up. We don't say that, oh well, so let's say we fly, overflight from Heathrow is £50 and it's £55 from Bristol, therefore they have to pay more. We burden the cost collectively as a contingent.
Next one's on tours, which would be James. Any rough estimated costs for additional tours yet?
Not right now, we don't. So we don't know what they're going to be yet either. So this is something travel places will put together themselves, which they may, I think that they have been planning, but they haven't indicated any costs as of yet.
Cheers, James. And then one for Beth and Matt, which will be, how do we find out who else is going to the Moot who live in our area?
I can answer this one, I think. So we, I think, have already got in contact with county people. I can't remember the official word for them. We've told them who you are and that you're going. So I imagine the best way for you to find out would be to ask your county international advisor, I think, are the people that we told. Is that right?
Yeah. So every assistant to the County Commissioner International and County Commissioner has a list of people who were offered a place for the Moot.
And as well as that, it gets really hard because GDPR is a lovely, lovely thing for us all. But I think one thing we are going to try and do is set up regional groups. So, once we've got through the 24th of January and we know who's coming, everyone's paid, we'll try and maybe set up on Facebook or on some other platform groups of everyone from the Northeast, so that you can, discuss lifts to the briefing event if it happens in person, or fundraising, or we're all going to Morrison's in Darlington, and we're going to pack some bags if that ever happens again, and things like that. So we'll try and get regions interconnected as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it all becomes easier once the registration deadline's passed, because then hopefully we'll have everybody here. So we will be able to work it all out from there and start the Facebook groups and all that kind of thing. So yeah, you will be able to find out if you haven't already.
So there's a few more questions in chat as well. We've been through all the ones that I'd got down, which was, will travel be covered if you move locations within the UK? Nicola.
There will come a point where you'll need to say where you're traveling from, and once you've done that, it will be locked in, I would imagine. So yeah, it's going to be a little bit difficult. It might be able to. It really depends on the mode of transport. It's too early really to really fix that in, but I know with the Jamboree, if you happen to live in London and then you move to Manchester, then your flight was probably arranged from London and you're just going to have to figure it out around that, but probably won't need to lock that in until probably the autumn, so hopefully it won't affect too many people.
There's more questions about the information sent to counties. So, Anthony, the guiding counties all went to the Guides International Commissioner for them to distribute, because I don't have access to the information for all of the guiding counties and districts. So that went to their national team, and hopefully they've shared it out. Thomas, you've asked, what if we move county beforehand? The best thing to do then is speak to your county's international commissioner so they can put you in touch with other people in your area, or just join the regional group. If you move regions as well, do we have any?
You can always join more than one regional group as well, because I know a lot of people scout at home and maybe scout at uni as well. So you don't have to be fixed. If you happen to scout in 2 regions, then join 2 regional groups. You're not fixed.
And then one final question that we have in the chat, which was, are there any specific travel arrangements for disabled scouts/guides on packages? Beth, do you want to pick this one up?
Yeah, so when you register, you will tell us if you have any additional needs, and then if you apply for travel, we'll make sure that those needs are met. So, for example, the most obvious one, I imagine, if you're a wheelchair user, then we'll make sure that whatever transport you're getting is wheelchair accessible. Yes. So as long as you've told us what your needs are, we will meet them. So just make sure you tell us, and then we can sort it out from there.
And Kathy, to answer your question, in the next 5 minutes, once I've checked of entry and your registration numbers against the groups. I think that's it then. I guess it'd be over to Wiley for the social.
Excellent. Okay. So social time. Fun with Wiley. I didn't write these slides. It won't be fun with me, but I won't be there anyway. Sorry, moving on. So we will now move you into breakout rooms. So we're going to share your top fundraising tips. So this is a 10-15 minutes just to be able to chat and interact with everyone, just to get some really good ideas. So one that I'm just going to throw out there just before we get you going is, how about running 2,022 kilometers before Moot? Or even Road to Ireland, but that's a different one. But yeah, I will let the splitting of groups commence.
I'll also stop the recording now. Stu, can you set up the breakout rooms, please? Because I don't have the option to.